Welcome to the Raw and Real podcast, a space for honest conversations about life in all its messy, beautiful complexity. Here we go deep, exploring the vulnerable, the meaningful, and the moments that truly shape who we are. Nothing's off limits. These are unfiltered conversations about life where we're not afraid of talking about the hard stuff. No masks, no filters, we're just real people with real stories. Let's get into it.
So, hi, Julie, and welcome to everyone listening. Today, we have a really deep conversation about our journey with food. So, through our conversations prior to this, Julie and I have uncovered that we've got some similarities and we really haven't dived deep into it. So, I'm hoping that in this conversation, we'll see what comes out. But we've got some similarities around the way that we view food and how we use food to soothe. So I'm interested to see where it all goes. My own journey, a little bit of that so far, and it is a journey. I haven't necessarily got all the way through to the other side, and I don't even know if there is another side, right? But my own journey with that has been around binge eating, and not to the point where I would do just eat as a means to soothe. For me, it was soothing. And some of the things I've noticed around eating and how I do that for when I'm anxious. And I didn't even know this was happening at one point in time. I didn't know the anxiety was there, but it was around eating because I was anxious and eating to avoid procrastinating and eating. And I'd eat to the point where I would feel sick. And it was always around sweet foods for the most part for me. So we'll dive deeper into that a little bit more as we go. But Julie, do you want to share a little bit of where you've started out and where you're at with it all?
Yeah, I'd love to. Good morning, everybody. It's a journey, isn't it? And before we started this conversation, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to be really raw and vulnerable here because some of the podcasts or the talks that we do, we have solutions. We've done the work, we've trained, and it's like, I can help you. But to be honest, today is just a conversation about where I am and just being, hopefully it can connect to somebody that's listening and understanding, and you're not alone. Food is a drug of choice. Some people have alcohol, drugs, whatever. For me, it was food. My journey started when I was 17, and I remember it. There was trauma from my childhood, and then food. Well, it started when I think about it, it started when I was 6 or 7. Food was soothing, and it obviously gave me the comfort that I was internally seeking. I had absolutely no idea at the time, and it's just been a journey that it's an addiction. To me, I feel it's an addiction. I took it to another level when I turned 18, and when my body was, or even when my body was changing and things like that, I went to the other extent where I starved myself to be skinny. So mine has been a massive roller coaster. I don't have the answers. It's a complicated journey, and it's one that I personally put shame on myself, thinking, why can't you just get over it? I get frustrated with myself. You've done all this work and you've trained and you've done all that, but I cannot, in this particular area of my life, seem to get it together. I can get it together for about 2 months, and then something happens, or a particular event happens, or my life's not going how I want it to go. And it's just like, I'm just going to eat. And so I want to take the stigma around it off it today, because people think from the outside looking in, why can't you just stop? Just have that one biscuit. So it's going to be a powerful conversation in the raw.
And I think unless you've gone through it, it is kind of hard to understand. And that's why it was interesting that when we met, we've uncovered this similar journey with it. For me, it started like I'm part of an Italian family, and for us, food is everything, right? It's just always, and whenever there's a family gathering, it's all about the food.
Yeah.
So this relationship with food has grown around that. And I know that I probably, as a child, my parents would have used food to soothe me. So if I was upset, it would have been, oh, here, have something nice, have something sweet. And it's like a little treat to make me feel better. which is neither right or wrong, but that started this relationship with using food as a way to soothe myself. And it's interesting you mentioned that around 17, 18, I think you said that you went through a period where you didn't eat. And I actually had the same thing. So when I was in year 12, through the stress of it, and at the same time, my first grandparent passed away, who was the first person who'd I'd ever known who'd passed away. And I went into that, just didn't eat. I did not, just ate very little. I remember taking to school for lunch I don't know if you remember the little snack packs. And it's like a tiny little box of dips and 3 biscuits. And that was all I would eat all day. And I lost a lot of weight during that year. And again, it was about using food to control the surroundings, the situation around me. It was like, I can control this. And I didn't know this at the time, but upon reflection later, I can control what I eat. That's all I can control. And everything else in my life felt at the time like I couldn't control anything. And food was the one thing I could control. And again, so it's just a really dysfunctional relationship with food. And from there, I've ever since used sweets as a way to just make myself feel better. And to the point where I would sit and eat a whole pack of Tim Tams and then a whole pack of lollies. You're laughing because and just like eat and not stop until it was all done. And then it was like a literal sugar high. I could feel like I've never actually done drugs, but I can imagine that that's why you do drugs, is to get to that high. And it's probably not comparable, the sensation to, I'm guessing, to marijuana or anything like that, but it was my drug. It's my version of it. And you spoke about addiction, and I know that was what I saw it as well, because I would hide it from other people. No one else knew that this was me. This is what I did. I would stash things here and there to eat, and then stash the packaging so no one would know what's happened. It's like I couldn't control it. And that's, for me, has been a journey that I feel like I'm over the hill of it. It hasn't gone away completely, because when I get really stressed, I still turn to food, but not in the same way. So I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. That relationship to food is becoming less dysfunctional. I don't necessarily do that binge, sit down and eat like that. It's not to say I haven't done it. I said in the last 12 months, maybe I have done it maybe 2 or 3 times, but I'm talking about 2 or 3 times a week, maybe more before that. So I can see there's a shift happening. It's been very gradual, and it's been it almost feels like the last frontier for me it's probably not the last one, but there's still a few more, but it's like lots of other things have had to shift for me to get to this place first. And I guess that journey will be different for everybody.
It is different for everybody, and everybody has their reasons for why they have chosen food. And for me, it was the comfort. It was that loving or nurturing that I was looking for and I wasn't getting. And I associated that with food from a very young age.
Yeah.
And so now I sit back and I look at the things that I've done, and I laugh with you, not at you. When you, oh my God, how many times have I eaten a packet of biscuits and then gone to the shop to replace it so it looks like I haven't done it? So it's everybody's journey is different. But for me, when I look back at it and when I look at why, I feel like there is a change in me as well. And we can talk about why I think that a bit later. But like I said, it was my inner child. I was a child. I was looking for soothing. I was looking for comfort, and I found it. And it just stayed with me the whole time. When things weren't working, it was like, oh, I can rely on food. But you made a really good point about but then I could starve myself. So it's not really the food, it's the control. I was controlling the food of what I was putting in my body, because when I lost a heap of weight, and then that just brings up another whole different set of thoughts. But when I was skinny, I thought I don't know what I thought, but I thought that's how I needed to be. That's how society wanted me to be. So I look back, and that's been an ongoing thing as well, as my weight and how I should look and how you're meant to fit in society. So Food has a lot of complications for me. It's not only it was soothing and comforting when I was little, but also it was like I would control it so I'd feel good to fit in society and look like how I should do. So my weight has been played a big part in that too. And I can see why I've gone from the extremes to size 8, 10 to 16. And it's just like a roller coaster. And when you look back, it's you just for me was survival. That's how I got that nurturing, loving instincts that you need as a human being. And that's not to I take full responsibility for all of it, but when as a little child, different. And it's about learning to forgive yourself and understand why you did what you did. We're human, we were surviving, we wanted something. For me, it was comfort. And then as I got older, it switched to food was a way of making my body fit into society. So there was the starving and then
very complex relationship, isn't it? I think it's not a simple, it's just that. And I think that's why it's been more of a challenge to get through to the other side of it and see and have, because we'll talk about, I guess, more awareness around it. And that's what's helped me is just having, but because it's so complex and there's different, it feels like there's different, it comes from different angles. That's why it's actually not as
that's true
easy. Just it's not one belief or two beliefs, or it's not one thing, two things. It's many factors, and I think that's the complexity just adds to why it's perhaps more challenging to overcome it.
Absolutely, because as you evolve and as you grow, there's different things that happen in your life. You're in different stages, and because I started so young, food was my way of dealing with everything in whatever I was going through at the time. We talk about when something was really bad, maybe a breakup of a relationship, I'd actually feel sick in my stomach. So I actually couldn't put food into my body. I didn't want to eat. So it is, as I think about it now, I'm thinking I'm actually very more forgiving of myself and not as embarrassed to talk about this, because it is, to me, it's a shame I put on myself. Like no one in my life knows what goes on. And this comes out.
It is very shameful. I can really resonate with the shame
Shameful.
of it. And because it feels very gluttonous and self-indulging, but actually it's got nothing to do with the food, absolutely nothing. It's really about the relationship with yourself, I think, more than anything, and then the emptiness or the lack, and using food as a way to fill that up. Well, that's for me anyway.
Exactly. And that shame part of it, I look at people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol, and I have empathy for them. What has happened in your life that you need that to survive? So why aren't I saying, why do I put the shame on the food? Because that's what I chose to use to survive.
It's just our drug of choice, right?
Yeah, whatever we decided to pick up at that time and it helped us in whatever way, shape, or form is what we've taken through.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to talk about it, because it affects so many women and men as well. It's not just women. And I really want to make people aware of it, to not be ashamed to talk about it, because you were only doing what you needed at that time to survive or to get through, or whatever was going on in your life, whatever you were telling yourself. And you use the word gluttonous and stuff like that, but it's people drink a bottle of vodka, say, for alcohol. I don't look at them and go, oh, you pig. But food, we relate. For me personally, even when we'd have morning teas for work or stuff like that, I didn't even eat them because I felt I had this shame around eating. It's like, I'm not a size 10. I'm a voluptuous 12, 14, whatever. It doesn't matter. Size didn't matter. And I thought, I don't want anyone to think that I'm overeating and indulging in this food because of the weight or the size that I've got.
But then you go away. Well, this is what I would do, is go away and just fill myself up in another place where no one was watching, right? Because and I think there's a couple of things that come from that is the sense of lack. Yeah. There's nothing, like the food is filling something up. It's like, and a lot of bit about I'm missing out. Yeah. And not just on missing out on food. There's something empty inside me that food is filling up. And that was the relationship I had with it. There's an emptiness. And particularly when I felt lonely or alone, that was the filling the cup, so to speak, using food.
And I have another friend, this is really interesting. So she came from a family where food was restricted. So then she came out and she was saying to me, my food was restricted. And then all of a sudden, when I moved out of home and when I had my own money and I could buy food, I was buying it because I was coming from this place. She was coming from this place of lack where food was maybe scarce in some people's environments, or it was controlled, especially the sugar and stuff like that. And she took on this belief that food was lack and she didn't want to feel this lack. So she used food to fill that void. There's just so many different reasons and complexities around why people use food to or whatever.
I know for when I started doing self-help work and started to really explore, one of the things that I became aware of is that food was my way of dealing with anxiety. And I actually never ever knew that I had anxiety. As a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, I didn't know that I was anxious. Now looking back, I see it. I used to go red in the face when someone asked me a question and block my words as I was speaking, wouldn't be able to stand in front of a crowd to speak, would never be able to do this. So yes, I had anxiety, but I never was aware of that when I guess it wasn't a thing necessarily that people spoke of or knew about. And so I know that when I felt anxious, I would go to food. And as an example, if I had to make a phone call about anything to a bank, or this as I became an adult and more independent, to make a phone call, or I would actually go and eat something. And I remember doing it and almost seeing myself in slow motion when I started to become aware of it. It's like, I need to make a phone call. I'm going to go up and get some food. And like this urge that I wasn't just from within to just eat something at that very moment when I was meant to make the phone call. And that was masking the anxiety that I felt about making the phone call. And I would do that throughout my whole day in all different, just any time that there was anything that brought me some sort of level of anxiety. When I started to actually really notice, that anxiety was masked by a need to go and just this urge inside to just go and eat something. And what is there here that I can just soothe this with? And it was fascinating for me to realize that, because that's not something that I was aware of for such a long time. And I think part of that awareness has been the helpful part of noticing the discomfort that I feel when I want to do something, and that, and I guess the anxiety or whatever, the discomfort that I felt inside, and the urge, and breaking that pattern of going to get food and doing something else instead rather than going to get food. That was a big pattern breaker. That was one of, I guess, again, the complexity of the whole relationship that I had. That's only one element of it. But that's something that I have been able to recognize to break that pattern and notice the discomfort in my body, notice the anxiety before I'm about to do something. And rather than get up, it's not like fight that urge, just notice the urge and choose something different. But like I said, there's other places where that I not necessarily have been able to do that with such great awareness. But that's been one shift that I've noticed, which has taken a long time. At the beginning, it wasn't like I could all of a sudden go, oh, I'm feeling the discomfort and I'll stop. That urge was too powerful to overcome. I feel the discomfort, I notice the discomfort, notice the anxiety, and still go and get the food and still eat, I would still do that. But it's been a very gradual thing that's taken probably 6-7 years to undo.
And you use the word journey, which is a great way to describe this, because this is not something that you just flick a switch and it goes away. I'm sure you can relate to when you're talking about the Tim Tams. I know when I've eaten a block of chocolate. In the moment, it feels good for a sec, but this is going to make me feel violently ill. I'm going to have brain fog. I'm going to have a crash, but I don't care, because in this moment, it's making me feel so good. It is, say, being aware moment. And that is not easy to do because, and I suppose it's awareness, isn't it? It's like doing this. What is making me get to this point that I feel like I need to smash a packet of Tim Tams and make myself feel sick, and you're not. And then you do it and you have the crash and you go, oh my God, why did I do that? I feel so sick. I feel disgusting.
But before that moment of feeling sick, for me, there's this kind of, again, I sort of relate it to what possibly a drug addict might feel like, just a moment of escape from everything that just feels like, oh, I've got, I can, it's like I'm disconnected from everything and just in a total, and it must be doing something to my brain. And then it hits and I feel that regret, that shame, that guilt, but there's a moment before, there's a bit of time before where it's like, oh, it's like a sugar high.
Those first couple of bites and it's like, oh my God, this makes me feel so good.
Yeah.
It is. It's a high.
It's a high, I think. And that's where that relation to addiction comes in.
For me, I've never overindulged in savory stuff. I wouldn't sit there and eat 5 packets of chips. So for me, it's that sugar. And everyone would be different. It doesn't matter if it's sugar, it's whatever your food is. It's getting that high.
And I think I've read about this before when I researched it at one point in time about it being like a dopamine release and I just wanted to perhaps talk about a little bit of some of the dysfunctional things I've done to try and overcome it. Because before that bit of awareness that's come, I did other things that, looking back, were quite dysfunctional, but it was my way of trying to control that addiction. So for me, one of those things was just cutting out sugar altogether, completely from my diet. And it's not to say that's a bad thing for anybody, but the way I did it was, again, through shame and guilt and trying to be in control of myself and trying to control myself. So it came from a very dysfunctional idea of how I could manage this situation. It didn't come from a place of self-love or taking care of myself. It was a forceful way of trying to control everything, and worked for a couple of months, 3, 6, even I think one point I'd keep dipping in and out of it. So it might be a week and then relapse and then it longer and relapse. And then eventually maybe I got to 6 months or so and then it relapsed and I just never went back again. But I remember feeling so good during that period of time, but still my relationship hadn't resolved that dysfunctional relationship with food, right? It was just managing the relationship and controlling the relationship, but I hadn't resolved it or formed a better relationship. And I think that's the dysfunction of not having a functional relationship with food. It was about control and dysfunction.
Absolutely. So here you are getting sugar out of your life for 6 months. And a part of you was probably feeling good on false pretenses because you were in control. It had nothing to do with the food or the sugar or whatever would I say. It's just that you had control over what you were doing. So it's, as we talk about and dive deep into it, it is such a control thing because it's the one thing for me that I can control in my life. I can control whether I have it. I can control whether I don't have it. I can control when I have too much and then I make myself sick. It's another thing, like that. It's a control. So I've got control here. I'm choosing to do this. So it just all comes back to, for me, I lost control when I was younger. Things happened and I lost control. I didn't feel safe and I did not feel like I was in control of my body, and food gave me that control. It was a powerful tool that gave me control in a nutshell. And like we've talked about, it's very complex. There's all different aspects that come in. But if I was to sum it up, and it's just what made me feel like I had some control over what the heck was going on in my life.
Do you think, Julie, it's about control of emotions? What I'm getting at is things going on outside of our control or perceived control, and we have feelings about those things, right? I feel uncomfortable about it. I don't want those things to happen. And the food is then helping to soothe. I can control how I feel by using food as a soother.
Absolutely. Because when I'm cruising through life and I'm exercising and eating healthy and things are going okay, food's not an issue. But as soon as things aren't going the way I want them to or how I think they should go, it's like the emotions come up. I'm not whatever. I'm not good enough. I haven't got control. I'm not worthy. I don't fit in. My life's never gonna, it's just the same old. And I go to food because I don't want to feel those emotions. So we block them out and we go and eat. Whereas if we actually sit with those emotions, which is nothing wrong with those emotions, it's like we're human, everybody has them. Just sit with them and explore them and say, where is this coming from? What's going on? Because it's not true. It's just how you're perceiving life. It's self, instead of going for the food to soothe, it's being aware of what your emotions like. And it's something that I haven't really started to do until since, well, let's say the last 2 or 3 years. What am I getting from food that I can't give myself?
Yeah.
What in this moment when I'm reaching for that chocolate or whatever, it's not the chocolate that I want. It's the feelings that the chocolate is going to give me. So how can I give that to myself without being.
Yeah, I think there's a lot about avoiding emotions that are there, like you said, that feeling of, if I sort of give an example of, it might be I'm at work and I have a conversation with somebody that makes me angry or triggers something, makes me feel less than, makes me feel not good enough, then that, excuse me, then that triggers this need to fill that up, right? That feeling of unworthiness, that feeling I'm not good enough. The food soothes that. It helps to make that feel better. And I guess noticing that part of that's been the shift of going, I feel uncomfortable here. I feel this has made me feel not good enough. Then noticing that urge to want to fill the gap with food has helped, like I said before at the beginning, to be able to shift that. And depending on how big this is, like I said, it still doesn't always mean that I don't go for the food. Yeah. But for me now, it's become less and less. I'm able to go, there's more realization of those ideas that I'm not good enough, those ideas that I'm not worthy, those ideas that I'm lacking in some way is just a perception, and that they're seeing myself as more whole and seeing myself as complete and not needing to fill that gap. And I think that has come from a lot of self-love, building self-worth, knowing my own worth and value.
Absolutely. Because I think about when I am on the straight and narrow, and I shouldn't say that. When I'm nurturing myself, and self-love to me is a very tricky one. I can give that to everybody else, but I'm working on giving it to myself. And in the last week or so, I've noticed how food hasn't been a big priority on my list of, it's not grabbing my attention like it normally does. And I've sat with that thought, and it's like, what is actually going on? Why am I feeling like food is not controlling me at this moment? And I've come to the realization that when I stand in my truth of me and what I want, and not pleasing everybody else, and being aware of when I think people are attacking me or doing things that I've made up in my mind, I'm not needing that comfort and that soothing, because I'm starting, and I feel like there was a switch in self-love, which is huge in this, huge part in for me. I'm not sure about you, but I would put a blanket across that and say self-love is huge for everyone, because if you can't love yourself, you're not going to want to try and change your relationship with food. So I've really started in looking into that and what self-love means to me.
That's really interesting because, sorry again, that's what self-love, to me, it's all about self-love. And I sometimes think that this kind of concept of self-love is a difficult one for most people to understand. It certainly was for me anyway. What is that? It's always been to me about being quite selfish and doing self-care things. But what I'm starting to really understand is that self-love is about knowing, being aware, or that we all have this inner soul. It's like our soul speaks to us, right? This little voice inside us, our little intuitive voice, or the voice in our heart that knows what's best. And self-love is listening to that voice and acting in alignment with that voice. And if I have an example of that, self-love, when I go to the cupboard and go and look for my packet of biscuits or whatever it is, that voice, I can, if I'm listening, that voice is saying, this is not good for you, right? Go for a walk instead. That voice says something, it actually speaks in that moment. And the moment that I reach for the packet of biscuits is when I've actually dishonored that voice and not listened. And that feels, it's betrayal of self. And the moment I choose in that moment to go for a walk, that's self-love.
It is. For me, when you talk about that, what comes up is for self-love, what I thought about 5 years ago was how I looked. If self-love was about being a certain weight and being a certain size and looking the part or whatever. So for me, it was a physical bodied image that I thought was self-love. That's all I'd known. I hadn't explored it. But as I explore it now, for me, self-love is just nurturing my body, not reaching for that food, but going for a walk. Or sometimes I pick up the phone and ring a friend. It's just like, or I send a message, or I do something that breaks that cycle of wanting to soothe with food, which I know is not serving me in my body. So it's been an interesting awareness, one I'm fully there yet, and one I really want to explore because it's important. I don't want, for me, it's the one blanket that I have over my head or that one little weight. We all have stuff going on in our lives, and I can figure stuff out. But this is like the monkey on my shoulder and that weight on my blanket, and I want to get past it. I want to lift that bloody blanket and throw it, and I want to feel free because to me, this patterning of food is not freeing. It's constricting. It controls my life. So for me, going forward, how am I? And as I said right from the beginning, I don't have the solutions in this one because I'm still working it out. It's still a journey for me. I think you've probably come a little bit further than what I have, and I look forward to the day that I am there. But for me now, it's really about self-love. It's about connecting in here and working out what is true for me and not taking on all the shit that's not serving me because that is what's making me eat. It's not taking on other people's energies and other people's thoughts and other people's ideas and society's idea of how I should be. It's how internally I want to feel because you know what? I was a size 8 and fucking miserable.
It's not about the size, is it? It's not about the size.
What about the size? And that's what I'm understanding now. I can carry a little bit of weight, but still be doing what I love out helping women and talking about these and having these conversations with you. It does not change who I am internally and what wisdom and guidance that I can give people. So that's how I feel like for me, how I am going to get that little monkey off my back. And I'm doing a lot better, but I just can't stick to it. Obviously, I need to look inwards. And that's what we talk about, isn't it? I feel like sometimes I feel like a fraud. That's why I don't talk about this stuff. In my line of work, I should be able to sort this shit out. I've trained in it. I help other people, but I can't seem to. So it's been a raw conversation for me. It's been vulnerable because it has that, oh God, I should have it together because that's my line of work. But I don't have it together. And I want people to know that it's okay. There's going to be parts in your life where you just don't have it together.
To be honest, I think nobody has it together, right? Nobody has every single duck in a row in every aspect of their life. That's just not reality. And it shouldn't even actually be the end goal, right? It's not about that. It's not about having that everything's perfect and I've got it all sorted and I know exactly what I'm doing. We're human. And the reality is that we've all gone through some sort of trauma or upbringing that has created these beliefs, and it's going to play out in so many parts of our lives, and we're going to be able to manage that or sort that out and overcome that in a way in some areas, and in other areas it's going to be more of a challenge. But are we ever going to get to the point where every single area of our life is perfect? I don't know that that's even the outcome that we want. And I think it's more about relating to people and letting people know that it's okay. You're not messed up. You're not broken.
No.
That everything isn't sorted. You are still beautiful. Yeah. And you're still worthy of joy and happiness and love, no matter if you've got things sorted or not.
That's a really good way to wrap this up. We're not fixed. We don't need fixing. We're not broken. We are just coming from a place of whatever's happened from childhood or till we got to this point where we think it means something about us. And that's where I'm going forward, really stepping into who I want to be. And I'm stepping into not people pleasing and not doing what's right for me. I often do things so if I'm just aligned to who I am in my inner, in my truth, but I don't have the answers.
No, and I don't have all the answers either. The only things I can share is I said, that inner, listening to that inner voice. And the other major thing for me that's been so helpful is stop the shame, stop the self beating yourself up, stop making yourself bad for whatever's going on in your life, because it's just been a way of coping with what's there. It's just one way of coping. And there are other ways of coping or other ways of getting through it, but that's been your way of coping, and it's okay. And self-love really is about having compassion for that rather than being shameful.
And I think to take us out, I love that, because that really resonates with me. To take away the shame and the guilt of why I got to this point is self-love. That to me is self-love.
100%.
Letting go of that and knowing I did my best.
And we're still doing our best, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really good conversation. Thank you so much, Julie, for being so vulnerable. And thanks to all our listeners for listening in. Hopefully you've taken something from it. Do you want to say one last thing before we go, Julie?
Just love yourself, be kind, and actually just be kind to yourself. You're still here. You've done what you've done for a reason, but be kind.
Beautiful message. Thanks, Julie, and thanks everyone for listening. Have a beautiful day.